May I tell you right now that I've got a guy whose entire life, his career, lifetime career, has been devoted to hanging around with people like Joe DiMaggio, Katherine Hepburn. No, John Lennon.
No way.
He is one of the best known photographers. He lives here in the Valley, at Anthem, as a matter of fact. And if you want shots of the kids, wonderful. On the playground, he'll come out for the right price.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure.
David Spindel spends all of that time with the athletic stars, the super sports stars, the movie stars, takes pictures of them. We're going to not only talk to David about the celebrities, but we're also going to show some of the pictures.
The pictures are fantastic, and then the stories that go with them, and the letters. I mean, he's pen pals with like almost all of these people.
Okay, so now with phones, everybody has a camera. Doesn't mean that everybody's a photographer, though. My guest has been in the company of the greats in just about every field, and he's going to share some of them with us now. How many books total, David Spindel? I mean, you've got several here, but from the beginning of your career.
There must be at least a dozen books that I've put together. The ones I'm most proud of, I did a whole series of 8 books on baseball, but my latest book is a book of photographs of all the celebrities I've known, and also interesting stories of, you know, my friendships that I built with them over the years.
Well, and because of the fact that you've been here before, we've talked before, I've known you for quite a while, I know about some of the stories. So share with us just some of the anecdotes that took place when you were taking pictures of people like Joe DiMaggio.
Well, when I originally set up to do the Joe DiMaggio still life, what happened was the day I was doing it, he walked into the studio. I wasn't expecting him. And he brought with him a shopping bag. I said, Joe, you went shopping? He said, no, I have 2 items for you to add to your photograph. Well, I had worked on setting up the still life for like a month. I was worried what he was going to give me. So he had a sterling silver humidor, which the place had given him when he had his 56-game hitting streak. And then he pulled out a baseball signed by Ronald Reagan and Gorbachev. So that was easy enough to figure out how to get into the still life. Then he says, where do I sit? He wanted to be in the shot. I didn't know that.
And he was a very, very elusive guy. Not a lot of pictures, particularly portrait pictures taken.
Yeah, he didn't, you know, most of the time he didn't want to be bothered with anything. But here he said he wants to be in it, so I had to think real quick, how am I going to get him in the shot? So what I did is I took out some memorabilia that was up in the right-hand corner, set up a separate 8x10 camera, and I double exposed them into the still life. When he saw it, he thought it was fantastic. He says, how can I see a copy of this? I said, well, I can have a print made for you by tomorrow. He says, fine. I said, where are you going to be? He says, oh, in Atlantic City.
And I know what the story is because you spent the weekend
with Joe
DiMaggio in Atlantic City. Yeah. And by the way, I want you to know, if I jump into these stories, it's only in the interest of you being able to meet a number of the celebrities, because each one of the stories is really, really fascinating. Well, John Wayne, you don't get much bigger than that.
Well, I never actually met John Wayne, but when I was a kid growing up, I used to watch all the old movies with my dad. And I decided I call these people precious peoples like John Wayne, Katherine Hepburn. So I sent him one of my Western still lifes as a gift. He sent me back a thank you note and an autographed picture. So I said, this is kind of neat. So I started writing to celebrities, and I said, whenever you're in New York, or if you live in New York, I'd love to do a portrait of you. And that's how I got to meet all these celebrities.
But David, listen, you were a New Yorker for years and years and years, and most of your work was done with Major League Baseball teams.
Oh, for 25 years I worked.
Really?
But my main work was commercial advertising.
Really, really remarkable when you captured the spirit of the teams with memorabilia, with souvenirs, with pennants. But all right, a lot of people have taken pictures of Willie Mays. A few pictures have been taken of Ted Williams. But I'm telling you, she may have been a lousy hitter, but Katherine Hepburn didn't have a whole lot of pictures taken. How did that happen?
Well, I knew when she was younger, she used to like to roller skate. So as a gift, I sent her one of my framed still lifes of an old pair of roller skates.
There they are.
She called up and thanked me, And she said, I'd love to see more of your work. Do you have other things like this? I said, yes. She said, well, I'll put my secretary on and, you know, set up appointments. So I set up the appointment. The secretary says, by the way, Katherine doesn't sign anything. I said, I'm going to be with Katherine Hepburn. I'm not going to ask her to sign it. So I decided I'll bring along the movie poster on Golden Pond, which I had on the side. After spending several hours with her, and my wife was with me, her secretary said, what's that you brought with you that you haven't shown her? I said, well, that's the movie poster on Golden Pond. I'd like her to sign. She says, I told you she doesn't sign anything. Hepburn turns to her and says, excuse me, see this? It's my mouth. It works. For Mr. Spindel, I will sign it. She goes over to a piano and moves over all the little knickknacks and signs it to Dave Spindel with deep appreciation. And I was floored. And she says, by the way, you're going to send this to Hank, you know, Henry Fonda? I said, yes. She says, well, here's what you got to do. You got to go out and get another one. Because if he sees my name on it, he won't sign it. He likes to be first.
Listen, okay, I got to tell you, this is the latest book. It's so latest, it isn't even out yet. But not only are the pictures in here for this kid in a candy store, but the individual stories. Now, when is this coming out?
The date hasn't been set yet. I'm working with a publisher and a PR person, and hopefully within a couple of months or less.
We're going to let everybody know because it's the kind of thing. All right, recognize this guy in 3D. Yes, 3D pictures, this montage of John Lennon. What? What, Beatle fans? You're saying, wait a minute, Katherine Hepburn, that's kind of hot. But John Lennon, very quickly, David, this is a weird story. How did this happen?
Well, my wife and I were building a new house, and the architect's fiance wanted to be an agent for a photographer. To make the story short, basically I trained her how to be a rep, and she decided to rep me. 2 weeks after she started repping me, she says, my brother-in-law-to-be got a job working with these musicians, and they'd like you to take photographs. I said, well, I work for KISS and a lot of groups, but I said, are they going to come to the studio? I said, no, they want just candid shots. I said, well, I can do it, but that's not really what I do.
You weren't too thrilled with that.
I wasn't, yeah, because I'm so busy in the studio doing my regular work.
What happened, though, when they said it's John Lennon?
They didn't tell me. That's the whole thing. So I go up to, first I said, I give them a fee that no one in their right mind would pay. They said, okay. I said, I want a purchase order. They said, don't worry, they're good for the money. I said, I'll take a chance. I go up to the Hit Factory. I'm there for like an hour waiting. I said, this is ridiculous. I don't care what they're paying me. And this Oriental woman comes out. I didn't recognize Yoko Ono at first. She takes me to this room that's the size of a phone booth where I had my equipment. And she says, the first thing I'd like is a group shot of everybody. I said, how many people? She says, 13. I said, ma'am, you can't fit that many people. It's like stuff in a phone booth. So I go out to look for another location to take the picture. I come back in, and there's a guy lying on the floor getting a massage. I said, boy, these musicians got it great. You know, turns over, it's John Lennon. My pants almost turned brown. You know, what can I tell you?
Which is the title of David Spindel's new book.
My pants turned brown.
So, listen, but it goes on and on and on. And all of these stories are going to be in the book, including stories of people that you never met but touched you deeply. We have 30 seconds for the Gregory Peck story.
Oh, I sent him a gift like I did to John Wayne 30 years ago. I get an email last month from, I can't think of her first name, Peck. It was Cecilia, his daughter, saying, you know, I went to the out my father's house. I found this framed picture hanging on his wall. I don't know who you are. Who are you? So I had to explain the whole thing to her that, quote, I was just sent to him as a gift. And I was thrilled that he loved it enough to hang on his wall.
But you have those ongoing memories that very few people ever are allowed. David Spindel, hey, you know what? In spite of the accent, he's a local guy with all of those international memories. Did anybody ever say no to David Spindel? You have to wait till the next time.
No,
he visits.
my wife does.
Oh. Doing stand-up at the Improv, ladies and gentlemen, this weekend, David Spindel. And you heard the preview on the Morning Scramble.